Hey y'all, New Jersey Snake Man here with another episode of Snake Man and His Scaly Friends. I got a couple of them here, and today we're going to be talking about snakes as pets. We do a lot of birthday parties. We'd love to come to yours. Feel free to hit us up. But a lot of times we have parents who are, maybe a little trepidatious about snakes for whatever reason. A lot of myths and, misconceptions, or maybe a bad experience when they were younger. But they have a kid, like me, back in the day, who's very into snakes and reptiles. So instead of getting them a snake pet, they can do a birthday party to see if they like it. And a lot of times those conversations can start becoming about, maybe someday when that 7-year-old is 11 or 12 and, capable of taking care of an animal on their own, are snakes good pets? And in my opinion, well, I think I'm a little biased. I'll admit it. But from everything that I've looked at and the animals that I've owned, snakes are, by and large, the easiest animal to keep as a pet. Way easier than a dog, cat, fish, hamster. They don't eat nearly as often. They go to the bathroom about as often as they eat. So you feed them once a week. They go to the bathroom once a week. If, Johnny or Susie forgets to feed them one time, it's not really a big deal because they can go for months without eating. I'm not recommending you starve your snake, but if you skip one, it'll be okay. We have all of our heating and all of that stuff on automated timers, which is very easy to do. So if you need to go away for a couple of days, you don't need to, board them and all of that type of stuff. So I'm actually holding some of the most popular pet snakes. So this is a corn snake. This is a New Jersey native snake, actually. So this is the native color. In New Jersey, you cannot own them looking like this. There are certain parts of their range where you cannot. I believe Illinois is another one of them, but I'm sure there's other states where these are endangered, just like in New Jersey. So you can't own them like this in New Jersey without a special endangered species permit, which we have, by the way. But they come in a ton of different colors. So this is just one example. This is an amelanistic or an albino. I know it's not white. It just doesn't have any black pigment. It's different types of albino. But they come in a lot of different colors that you can legally keep in New Jersey and many states where they are endangered. Some of them have what are called red eye morphs only. And if you look, anything that is amelanistic is going to have red eyes because they don't have any black pigment in their body. So just two examples there, and then these are the most popular pet snakes in the world. And then this little buddy over here is a ball python, and that is the second most popular pet snake in the world. And I chose these guys because these are adult size for these snakes, so you can see that they don't get terribly large. Both of them can be pretty comfortably housed in a this one's getting a little wiggly. Let's see, pretty comfortably housed in a 20-gallon long glass aquarium, or if you guys can see the we have these rubber tubs or plastic tubs that we keep ours in. They don't really do a lot of climbing, although they're making a liar out of me as they're climbing away from me. But they're not really the ground dwelling snakes. Pretty fossorial, so they don't really need a lot of climbing space or vertical space like some of the arboreal snakes. Now, what makes these guys such good pets? One, they're very hardy. They tend to be, do pretty well. My recommendation is to get one that's about a year old, that's a well-started young snake rather than a hatchling. It's going to cost a little bit more, but I think that cost is going to be well worth it because hatchlings have a lot more likelihood of passing, unfortunately, from whatever, genetic disorders or anything like that. A lot of that stuff's going to cause death when they're really young, so that they don't grow up and pass those things on to the next generation. But they also will already be eating really well. They're going to be a lot less fidgety. Usually the youngest ones are the ones that are a little nippy. And I always use the example, like, just imagine, right? If you have a tiny little snake, looks like a worm, everything else eats it. So it's got to be a little defensive in order to survive. So even corn snakes, as you can see, these guys are showing no interest in biting me whatsoever, and I've very rarely seen a mean one. Same thing with ball pythons. But when they're babies, they can be a little bit more edgy, and for that new snake owner, we don't want to have that type of experience where they're like, oh, my new friend that I love and endear gave me a little nip and it scared me. Just some food for thought on that. Now, as far as keeping them, the two most important things are temperature and humidity. as far as the actual husbandry or the environment that you're creating for the animals. And that's another reason why these guys are awesome, because their temperature and humidity requirements really aren't very strict. So these guys are from Ghana, where it's quite dry. And these guys are from New Jersey, all the way down to Florida and west a little bit, but they like sandy soiled pine forest where it's also pretty dry. Contrast that with an animal like, say, the Brazilian rainbow boa, which we also have, who lives in hollowed out tree crevices in the Amazon, where it's incredibly humid and very, very moist. If you let their humidity get too low for even just a couple of days, you could have a dead snake. Whereas these guys, if their humidity fluctuates some, it's not really too big a deal. Same thing with these guys. We actually keep these on paper. So we get it like a big roll of newsprint, but you can use paper towels or old newspapers or what have you. They tend to be pretty sterile. And the only thing there is that if there's any spillage of the water, the opposite is true with these guys. If their humidity gets too high for too long, they can get some skin conditions. Again, if it's too high for a couple of days, they're not going to die. In fact, they'll seek out, in the wild, they'll seek out holes in the ground where they can regulate their humidity and get a little bit more humid environment. So again, they're pretty easy, but if you leave it for a long period of time and they're sitting on wet paper towels for weeks and months, you can get some skin conditions. But on the whole, they are really, really simple to keep. Same thing with temperature. So Ghana, very dry, kind of arid climate. Their temperature can fluctuate quite a bit. So these guys can handle a pretty good bit of cold, as can these guys, as New Jersey natives. The temperatures you want to keep them at are going to be in those mid 80s on one side, mid 70s on the other, and you can do that very easily with an under tank heater. I mean, the ones out of the box I think might cost $20 or $30. We have a whole heat tape system that runs through all of our racks and is run by run automatically. So again, we're crazy. We've got 90 something snakes, but for your first snake, getting an under tank heater will work just fine. And you can set it up with a thermostat very easily. It's very inexpensive. I mean, for the cost of the animal, the husbandry, the getting a year's worth of frozen rats, you can have all of that for way less than the cost of a dog, and a lot less time invested in keeping them. So I know I'm biased. My opinion, snakes are awesome pets. They are one of the easiest. And I did mention the frozen rats. We strongly recommend, because people will often ask that. And one of the reasons why we do a feeding demo. Hey, come back. One of the reasons why we do a feeding demo at all of our snake shows is so people can see that it's not this macabre, blood everywhere, sort of experience. It's literally watching them swallow a frozen rat. So what we do and what we recommend is that everyone feeds frozen thawed, which means you can get frozen rats, and they come in a bag. I recommend a company called Rodent Pro. I'm not sponsored by them. They've given me $0, but it's just a company that we've had a very good experience with. They shared with us that they euthanize their rats in a humane way, which is important to us, and they're also very cost effective. We get thousands of them at a time, but you can even get, one bag of 20, small rats. I use rats because they're higher in fat, protein, and calcium, denser bones, bigger organs, stuff like that. Mice are fine, but a rat is a perfect meal for a snake. You don't need to vary their diet with anything else. But they do need to eat meat. So I want to be very clear on that. They tried a vegetarian sausage, I think, maybe back in the 90s or something. They found that shortened the lifespan. Like they're not an animal that can be converted to vegetables. They are designed to eat meat and meat only. So it is a very simple process. It is very easy. These guys tend to eat really well for the most part. The one thing I recommend corn snakes over ball pythons is ball pythons have an extremely slow metabolism. They can go on less than a calorie a day. They hold the world record for the longest hunger strike without dying in a snake, like 26 months. So I will often get calls from people after we've done birthday parties or whatnot. Hey, we got a ball python. It hasn't eaten in 3 weeks. That's like us skipping a snack. And so it's not really anything to worry about too much as long as they're not losing weight. But ball pythons are more inclined to have some hunger strikes and feeding issues that can be off-putting for new, snake keepers. So that's why I do recommend the corn snakes. The other thing is ball pythons. They were called the regal pythons because ancient royalty would wear them as jewelry. And that's because they will sit there and do next to nothing. Again, less than a calorie a day. They don't need to do a whole lot of moving. Whereas corn snakes are a lot more active, a little bit more personable, if you will. Snakes don't like us in the way that like dogs might, but the corn snake, in my opinion, is going to be a little bit more interesting for a young reptile keeper who is just getting started. For someone that likes a calmer animal that's just going to sit there and maybe hang out on their arm or their lap when they're doing some handling, a ball python might be a great fit for that. So I'm not poo-pooing about a ball python. Just why I recommend corn snakes more than the others. These are actually currently crawling around inside my shirt, trying to get dark and warm. But yeah, so hopefully that explains the food. You can't feed the frozen rat. You have to warm it up. You don't do it in a microwave or anything like that. You don't need to use any of your good cookware. You literally, put it in an old Tupperware or some sort of we actually use dishwasher pans. We got like 3 of them. I think they were $1 each at Walmart or something. And we use that to thaw out, all of our rats at one time. You can do it in a bag. There's a lot of easy ways to do that. You can just leave it out and let it, warm up over time. You don't want to do that for too long because, again, we're running a race against bacteria at some point. Same reason why you don't want to leave, raw chicken out sitting on your counter for too long and then eat it. But that's an option you can do. We actually use, we actually use, I'll get that in a minute. We actually use hot water, just tap water. You don't need to go too hot. Thaw it out until it's completely defrosted and a little bit warm. And usually we'll take it right off of the tongs. We do recommend here, I'm going to grab these real quick so you guys can see it. We do recommend some kind of tong just to keep your fingers out of harm's way. So we use these forceps for most of our animals just because it's easy instead of switching gears. You don't need them this big. They come in a lot of sizes and they do lock, which is nice. But we use these. We do have some very large animals that we definitely don't want our hands anywhere near the prey when we're feeding because they don't have great eyesight and they might mistake whatever is moving for food. I think every snake keeper who's done it for a while has probably had an experience like that, but you can avoid that if you use tongs or forceps. So, yeah, a bit of a longer video than we usually do, but I did want to share with you guys because we do get that question a lot about, do snakes make great pets? And I think for the right person that's willing to, put the time in, they will live a pretty long time. So you do need to consider that. They're going to live, well into their 20s and 30s. Some of them longer than that. But they do make awesome pets and are, in my opinion, the easiest animal to keep. My upkeep on 90 snakes is way less than 1 dog, for sure. Which sounds crazy, I know, but I promise you that is true. So if you do have any questions, I certainly recommend going and doing your own research. There's a lot of great places out there. Look up care sheets on different animals. You can go as crazy or not crazy as you want with how lifelike you make the enclosure. Ours are very simple. Paper, a hide area, and a water bowl for many of our animals. Some of them we use cypress mulch because it does hold more humidity. And it also has some antifungal qualities. So it's got a lot of qualities of, trees like pine or cedar, which you can't use with snakes because of the oils. But there's a lot of the same qualities that make them good bedding for rodents, people that keep hamsters and gerbils and things like that, while having the lack of oils the way a hardwood would have, like a maple or an oak or something like that. That is going to have it's going to rot much more quickly than, or even aspen. I actually don't like aspen. Many people use it. I don't like it. It's very absorbent, but it grows mold very, very quickly. So you need to do a lot of cage changing, whereas the cypress, a little bit harder to find, but is going to be much better, for that, if that makes sense. But again, you can go as crazy as you want. You can make them completely bioactive, or you can make them super simple. And the snakes do really well in both. So, at any rate, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. Check out our website, reach out to us, find us on Instagram. We'd love to help you. If you have a pet snake and you have a question, hopefully I don't get inundated with too many, but I will get back to you if you reach out to me. Happy to help in any way we can. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you guys next time.